Okay, so in this video I'm going to teach you how to make water dance in Blender. So let's just jump in and start by creating a new file. Okay. And the first thing we're going to do is set up our domain for the fluid simulation. So it's going to be a simple cube, just under Shift-A, Mesh and Cube. Let me enable my screencast keys. Okay. Size this domain up like 5 meters. Okay. Bring it up and Control A to apply the scale. Okay, so Shift Z to go into wireframe mode. And the next thing we're gonna do is import a 3D model with the animation already baked. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so just by going to mixamo.com. If you don't know, Mixamo is a awesome free website where you can download characters and animation that are already made for you. Okay, so once we're in Mixamo, let's just go under the characters tab here and just pick a character with like stuff like this Mo J Lego, or just pick a simple one like this simple character. Okay, just click use this character and it's gonna load on the right side of your screen. And then we want to go into the find animation tab and just search for dancing. Let's see what we got here. Okay, this will go fine, and then just click on trim to get a lot more frames. And then just click on download. Click you know, FBX is fine, with skin is fine, and your project frame per second. In this case I'm gonna use 30 frames per second. Just download that, just locate the file, and then in Blender just click File, Import, and then FBX, and just drag your file into the File Explorer here in Blender. Open it up, and I think it's gonna be fine. Wait a minute to load. Okay, and there he is. So it's in proper scale, so we don't have to scale nothing. So the next thing we're gonna do is scale our domain in the y-axis, like by 5. Yeah. And then let's see, where does it start? It does start here. So what I'm gonna do is select the armature, and under the transform here, under delta transform, gonna set the location y to like 12, so it starts before. Select everything in here by holding shift and selecting the first and the last item, and Control J, so we have only one mesh. That is just the guy itself. And we're gonna go into the physics properties, fluid, flow, and select liquid and inflow. Okay, so this is gonna emit fluid from the mesh itself. So let's set up our domain, and let's go into a fluid domain, set this to, of course, liquid, and maybe set the timescale to 0.5, because new Mantaflow system is like very fast. Okay, so talking about cache a bit. So I cached it, as you saw in the final result, at 600 division. It took like I don't know, probably 5 hours for the liquid, and I don't know, 2 to 3 hours for the mesh, and I ended up having a 13 gigs file of cache. So be careful with what you set in the division. One tip I'm going to show you is you see this little box here? That is the voxel size of the resolution. So right now it's pretty, it's like very, very big, very big. So what you are going to do, because I already did it, is like set it at least to a 400 resolution. So it's really, really small. And here, as you can see, we can see the difference between a low res baking and a high res baking. So do what you want, but you know, that's the result. Okay, so for this tutorial I'm gonna bake at 128 division, and let's see here, enable mesh, and 2 of the appress factor is fine. Select a caching folder. I have a cache folder here. Let's say dancing water toot. There we go. Accept. Control S to save the file, and just bake the data. Yeah, and one thing before you bake the data, as you can see, the scale is also Control A to apply the scale. Bake and then press bake data. So with the standard settings, it will bake only to frame 50. So if you want to extend the baking end frame, just go on the bottom of the physics page and just type the end frame that you want. I'm gonna set just this to 100. Okay, so the bake is finished, and as we can see we have a lot of particles, but that's not a problem. It's working. So next thing we're gonna do is bake the mesh. So hit bake mesh. So the bake is finished, and as you can see, the the fluid is really low res, and just shade smooth for making it a bit better. And we can disable the guy from the viewport and from the render now. And as you can see, we have this awful like sculpture because we bake it at only 188 and 128 division. But the higher you set that value, the higher this mesh, higher quality this mesh will look. So next thing we're gonna do is apply a material to this, and first let me set up this camera to so for snapping the camera to view is Control Alt Numpad 0. Position our camera pretty centered, so 0 0. Here is 0. Lower it down a bit, getting a bit closer to the subject. Okay. And we can go into render mode. So selecting the domain and opening a new tab, let's just go into the shader editor. Okay, click on new and rename this, I don't know, water. Delete the principal and replace it with a glass BSDF. And that's basically the shader. Next thing, lighting. Okay, open up a 3D viewport here and just spawn a area light here. Drag it up, go into the lamp settings and set this to a rectangle. With the Y, set this to, I don't know, 15, should be pretty good. Let's set this to 18 maybe. And the size of the X should be 3 or maybe 6. 6 is good. Okay, just reposition it and increase the power to I don't know, 200. Okay, and if I bring back the final result of this tutorial, we can see I have a light only like forcing the silhouette of this waterman. We have a light in the back, so let's just make that with Shift D. Let's duplicate this, shift it in the y-axis, reposition it, set this to a square, rotate it with R and X, and I'm on the wrong side, so reposition it so it is right behind the water simulation. Okay, so we have the silhouette thing going on here. So let's set up some background. Just Shift A, add in a plane, scale it up like 20 times, yeah. Shift it back, and then tab into edit mode and press 2 for the edge select mode, and select these 3 edges. Press E to extrude and X and Z for extruding only on the Z axis, and then pick this these 6 edges, no 5 edges, whatever they are, and just Control B and increase the steps of the bevel with your scroll wheel for a nice background. We can make this a new material and just increase the roughness and make I choose like a dark blue here. Yes, okay. Next thing we're gonna do is set up our camera depth of field. So enable depth of field in the camera tab, and then right click in the camera here and select this focus pick and select the mesh, and just set the f-stop to maybe 1.2 or even lower if you want. Yeah, maybe 0.6, 0.3. 0.3 pretty shallow, so 0.5. 0.5 is pretty good. Okay. Let's increase the strength of our lamp maybe to 400. Yeah. And that's basically how you animate water dancing. As you can see, we have a lot of particles going on here. But you know, it's dancing, as you can see. Okay, so talking about rendering. Okay, so rendering this will be like a pain, so because you will set a higher sample value to render just the water, but you know the background doesn't need like 1,000 sample, just needs, I don't know, 100. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch to branched path tracing, and under the subsamples set the transmission to 3 and the render and the viewport to maybe, I don't know, 40. So we have 40 samples for all the material except for the transmission, which has 120. So your viewport is gonna be a bit slower, but the render will be a lot more optimized. So you can select an output folder where you wanna put this, and then just set a file format. I choose target raw because it's raw and I don't wanna lose the quality of the footage. So set an end frame like a 100, and yeah, that's basically it. If you want, you can enable motion blur with like a higher shutter for that motion blur, and that's basically it, guys. So if you like this tutorial, remember, you can leave a like and subscribe to this channel, and if you want to support the channel in the creation of this tutorial, you can donate to the paypal.me link in the description. Thank you guys, see you.